Let me tell you about Sarah. She's 47, a successful marketing executive, gorgeous, confident, owns her own home, travels the world. By every measure, she's what we'd call a catch. But Sarah came to me absolutely devastated because yet another relationship had ended abruptly. She'd been dating Mark for 3 months. Everything seemed perfect. They had amazing chemistry, great conversations, fantastic dates. Then suddenly, he started pulling back. Shorter texts, fewer calls, canceled plans. Within 2 weeks, he was gone. Sarah was crushed. She kept asking me, "What's wrong with me? Am I too old? Should I get more work done? Maybe I came on too strong?" But here's the thing, Sarah wasn't doing anything obviously wrong. She was making one of these 7 subtle mistakes that older women make without realizing it. And once I showed her what it was, everything clicked. 6 months later, Sarah met David. She's now engaged and happier than she's ever been. The difference? She stopped making these 7 critical mistakes that push men away. And today, I'm going to share every single one of them with you. Ladies, what if I told you that the very things you think make you more attractive to men as you get older are actually the exact reasons why they're pulling away? And what's even more heartbreaking is that most women have no idea they're doing it. I'm talking about successful, beautiful, accomplished women in their 40s, 50s, and beyond who keep wondering why the men they date seem to lose interest after a few weeks or months. The answer might shock you, because it has nothing to do with your age, your looks, or your success. It's about these 7 invisible mistakes that are sabotaging your love life without you even knowing it. Mistake number 1. The comparison trap. The first mistake that's absolutely killing your chances with men is something I call the comparison trap. And I'm not talking about comparing yourself to younger women, though that's part of it. I'm talking about something much more subtle and much more damaging. Here's what's happening. When you're dating as an older woman, you unconsciously start comparing every new man to your ex-husband, your past relationships, or some idealized version of what a man should be at this stage of life. You've lived life, you've learned lessons, and now you have this mental checklist. But here's where it gets tricky. Men can sense when they're being measured against someone else. They can feel when you're not seeing them for who they are, but rather evaluating them against your past experiences or future expectations. I had a client, Lisa, who would constantly say things like, "My ex-husband always remembered to," or "At my age, I expect a man to." She thought she was setting healthy boundaries, but what she was actually doing was making every man feel like he was auditioning for a role that someone else had already defined. Men want to feel like they're creating something new with you, not filling in for someone who came before. When you constantly reference past relationships or make comments about what men should do at this age, you're putting them in a box before they've even had a chance to show you who they really are. The fix? Start fresh with every new person. Let them surprise you. Stop measuring them against your past and start getting curious about their present. Mistake number 2. The urgency energy. Mistake number 2 is what I call urgency energy. And this one is so common among older women because, let's be honest, you feel like time is running out. You're thinking, "I don't have time to waste. I need to know if this is going somewhere." But here's what's happening energetically. That sense of urgency creates a pressure that men can feel from the very first date. It's not that you're saying anything desperate or needy. It's more subtle than that. It's in how quickly you want to define the relationship, how soon you bring up exclusive dating, how fast you want to integrate him into your life. I remember working with Janet, who was 52 and had been single for 3 years after her divorce. She was amazing, funny, smart, financially independent. But she kept having the same experience. Men would be really into her for the first month, then they'd start to fade. When we dug deeper, I realized Janet was unconsciously treating every date like a job interview. By the 3rd date, she was already trying to figure out if he was the one. She'd analyze every text, every gesture, trying to determine his long-term potential. Men could sense this evaluation energy, and it made them feel like they were under a microscope instead of getting to know someone organically. The truth is, men fall in love in their own timeline, not yours. And when they feel rushed or pressured to make decisions about the future before they've even had time to enjoy the present, they instinctively pull back. The solution? Practice what I call present moment dating. Focus on enjoying each interaction for what it is, rather than what it might become. Let the relationship unfold naturally instead of trying to fast-track it to the finish line. Mistake number 3. The hyper-independence shield. Now, mistake number 3 might surprise you because it's actually one of your greatest strengths turned into a relationship roadblock. I call it the hyper-independence shield. As an older woman, you've probably learned to do everything yourself. You've survived divorce, raised kids, built a career, managed finances, fixed things around the house. You're incredibly capable and self-sufficient. And that's amazing. But here's where it becomes a problem in dating. You've become so good at not needing anyone that you've forgotten how to let someone else contribute to your life. Without realizing it, you're sending a message to men that says, "I don't need you for anything." And while you might think this makes you attractive and low maintenance, it actually makes men feel unnecessary and unwanted. I worked with a client named Patricia who owned her own business and had raised 2 kids as a single mom. She was incredibly strong, successful, completely self-reliant. But every man she dated would eventually tell her she didn't seem to need him for anything. Patricia would say things like, "Oh, don't worry about picking me up, I'll drive myself," or "I've already handled it," or "I don't need help with that." She thought she was being considerate, but she was actually robbing men of the opportunity to feel useful and valued in her life. Here's the thing about men: they fall in love through contributing, through feeling needed and appreciated for what they bring to your life. When you handle everything yourself and never let them help, they start to wonder what role they're supposed to play in your world. The key is learning to receive gracefully. Let him pick you up for dates sometimes. Ask for his opinion on decisions. Allow him to help you with things, even if you could easily do them yourself. It's not about being helpless, it's about creating space for him to feel valuable in your life. Mistake number 4. The emotional wall. Mistake number 4 is the emotional wall, and this one breaks my heart because it comes from a place of protection, but it ends up pushing away the very love you're looking for. After you've been hurt, disappointed, or let down in past relationships, you develop what I call emotional armor. You become more guarded, more careful about showing vulnerability, more protective of your heart. You think you're being smart and cautious, but what you're actually doing is preventing real intimacy from developing. I had a client, Susan, who had been through a really painful divorce. Her ex-husband had cheated, and she was determined never to be that vulnerable again. So when she started dating, she kept everything surface level. She'd share stories about her work, her travels, her hobbies, but she never let men see her real emotions, her fears, her dreams, her softer side. Susan thought she was protecting herself, but what she was actually doing was creating a relationship ceiling. Men would be attracted to her confidence and success, but they'd eventually feel like they were dating a beautiful stranger. They never got to see the real Susan, her hopes, her insecurities, her tender heart. Here's what most women don't understand. Men don't fall in love with your accomplishments or your perfectly curated life. They fall in love with your humanity. They want to see your vulnerable side, your authentic emotions, your real struggles and dreams. When you keep everything locked behind an emotional wall, you prevent the deep connection that creates lasting love. Men start to feel like they're in a relationship with your representative, not the real you. The solution is what I call strategic vulnerability. You don't have to share everything on the first date, but you do need to gradually let down your guard and allow him to see your authentic self, both your strengths and your tender spots. Mistake number 5. The mothering instinct. Mistake number 5 is something that comes so naturally to older women that you probably don't even realize you're doing it. I call it the mothering instinct, and it's relationship poison. As a woman who's lived life, you've developed incredible nurturing skills. Maybe you've raised children, taken care of aging parents, mentored younger colleagues. You know how to take care of people, and you're good at it. But when you bring this mothering energy into romantic relationships, it completely kills the sexual and romantic tension. I worked with a client named Carol who couldn't figure out why men always seemed to lose romantic interest in her even though they clearly cared about her. Carol was 49, warm, caring, and had this natural instinct to take care of everyone around her. When she was dating someone, she'd do things like remind him to take his vitamins, suggest he should call his mother more often, pack him snacks for his business trips, organize his schedule, give him advice about his career or his friendships. She thought she was being loving and supportive. But here's what was happening. Instead of being his romantic partner, she was becoming his mother. And men can't maintain sexual attraction to someone who treats them like a child they need to take care of. Men want a partner, not a parent. They want someone who sees them as a capable adult, not someone who needs to be managed, fixed, or improved. When you slip into mothering mode, you're taking away his autonomy and treating him like he can handle his own life. The fix is learning to support without controlling, to care without managing. Instead of telling him what to do, ask questions like, "How are you handling that situation?" Or "What are you thinking of doing about that?" Let him be the expert on his own life while you play the role of supportive partner, not managing mother. Mistake number 6. The success intimidation factor. Mistake number 6 is tricky because it involves something you should be proud of your success. But the way you handle your accomplishments in dating can either attract the right man or scare away everyone who isn't secure enough to handle a powerful woman. I call this the success intimidation factor, and it's not about hiding your achievements or playing small. It's about how you present your success and what energy you bring to it when you're dating. I had a client, Michelle, who was a successful real estate broker. She'd built her business from nothing, owned multiple properties, drove a luxury car, traveled first class. She was incredibly accomplished. But Michelle kept attracting men who were either intimidated by her success or who wanted to use her for her money. The problem wasn't her success, it was how she talked about it. Michelle would unconsciously use her achievements as a way to establish dominance or prove her worth. She'd mention her income, talk about expensive purchases, name-drop important clients. She thought she was showing men that she was a catch, but she was actually creating competition instead of connection. Here's the thing: confident, secure men are attracted to successful women. But they want to feel like your equal partner, not your inferior or your trophy. When you lead with your achievements or use them to establish hierarchy in the relationship, you're attracting the wrong kind of man and repelling the right ones. The key is to be proud of your success without wielding it like a weapon. Share your passions and accomplishments naturally, but don't use them to prove your worth or establish your position. Let your success be one beautiful part of who you are, not the whole story. Mistake number 7. The settling prevention trap. And finally, mistake number 7 is what I call the settling prevention trap. And this might be the most damaging of all because it disguises itself as having high standards. After years of life experience, you know what you don't want. You've learned from past mistakes, you've identified red flags, you've created boundaries. And that's all good. But somewhere along the way, your standards might have become a fortress that keeps everyone out. I worked with a client named Diane who had a list. And I mean a detailed, specific list of exactly what she wanted in a man. He had to be between 5 feet 10 inches and 6 feet 2 inches, make at least 6 figures, have never been married more than once, love dogs, enjoy hiking, appreciate fine dining, be emotionally available, financially stable, and about 20 other specific requirements. Diane thought she was preventing herself from settling, but what she was actually doing was eliminating potentially amazing men over superficial criteria that had nothing to do with whether they could make her happy. Here's the truth: the man who's perfect on paper might be completely wrong for you, while the man who doesn't check all your boxes might be exactly what your heart needs. When you become so rigid about your requirements that you can't see past them to the actual person in front of you, you miss out on real connections. The settling prevention trap makes you focus on what someone lacks instead of what they bring. It makes you eliminate good men over small incompatibilities while missing the big picture of who they are as a person. The solution is to distinguish between your non-negotiables, the things that truly matter for compatibility and happiness, and your preferences, the things that would be nice but aren't deal breakers. Focus on character, values, and how he makes you feel, rather than whether he meets every item on your checklist. Now I want you to take a deep breath, because if you recognize yourself in any of these 7 mistakes, you're not broken, you're not doomed, and it's not too late. These patterns developed for good reasons. They were your way of protecting yourself and navigating the world as an independent, experienced woman. But here's what I want you to understand. The very experiences that made you strong and wise can also be the foundation for the most beautiful, mature love of your life. When you recognize these patterns and start shifting them, you don't become less powerful, you become more magnetic. The men who are worthy of you, the emotionally mature, confident, ready for real love men, they're not intimidated by your age, your experience, or your success. They're attracted to it. But they want to connect with the real you, not the protected, guarded, or overly self-sufficient version you might be presenting. Remember Sarah from the beginning of our conversation? Once she stopped making these mistakes, she didn't just find love, she found the kind of deep, mature, passionate relationship that's only possible when 2 people have lived enough life to know what really matters. This week, I want you to pick just one of these 7 mistakes and pay attention to when you might be doing it. Don't try to change everything at once. Just notice. Awareness is the first step to transformation. And if this video resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Which of these 7 mistakes hit home for you? What patterns do you recognize in your own dating life? Your story might be exactly what another woman needs to hear to transform her own love life.